Hey guys, it's Chris Truitt from the Reluctant Somm. We're really excited about season 3. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Just wanted to give another little note that if you like what we're doing and you want to show us some support, reviews, likes, shares, word of mouth, all of these things really help us. We'll also be creating a newsletter this year that focuses on some of our favorite restaurants, favorite wine lists, favorite places to eat, as well as just some really cool people in the industry, as well as some other insights into what's going on in our field of profession. I also wanted to let you know that on that is where we'll be updating everybody on all of our pop-ups and any collaboration events or anything that we're doing. So if you want to keep track of us, that's the best way. Also, if you're not already following us on Instagram, you can follow us at Reluctant Somm on Instagram and keep up with us. Give us likes. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, Adam. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I am very happy to have you here. It feels like, this is probably the first time that we've had a chance to actually hang out outside of the time that you came to the wine bar, and we got to talk about wine, and you tasted through everything that we offered by the glass.
Did I?
Yes.
Wow,
Well,
I
splashed you on all of them.
You were
didn't
excited.
drink. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically connecting with you over Ernest Winery.
Yeah.
And our mutual love for Aaron and what they do there, and Joseph Ryan and the team involved. And so ever since, I've always been excited to, I wonder when I'm going to see Adam, and I'll go to tastings and I don't see you, or lunches and I don't see you, and I'm always like, but now,
I'm just so busy.
Now I get this. You are busy, bro. You're running 3 restaurants effectively. So that's plenty busy. And we'll dive into that, because that's always kind of a topic, is where we are in the industry right now. I think is always important to note. But we always start with kind of an introduction. And how did you find wine, and how did wine become part of your life? And where's your restaurant background?
Well, thank you. Officially Adam Robbins. So I'm the beverage director for what's called Atomic Workshop, but everybody might know it more as Staper Provisions, The Progress, and the Anchovy Bar. But really the story goes back, believe it, I always like to mention, because I think I look younger than I actually am, but I've been in the business for 30 years. So no wine related when I was 15 years old, and I probably was working illegally at a Mexican restaurant right down the street from my high school. So I'd go to school, and then to make some money for gas, I work at this little, it's still there actually, on Miller Avenue in Mill Valley. But when you start doing the restaurant thing, you kind of stick with it, you always think you're going to be doing other things, and allows you to do, whether it's school, and I did school several different ways, community college, and I eventually ended at Cal, but I always had a restaurant job, because not everybody can afford to just go to school, so it was always something I was doing, and ideally I wasn't going to work full-time when I was going to Berkeley, but I was living on my own, and that's how it had unfolded. And I was working at this great Italian restaurant in Mill Valley, Anchovy Ristorante, and there's this woman, Susan, who was one of the managers, and she was also like the wine director. For Mill Valley, growing up there wasn't a lot of amazing lists, maybe El Paseo at the time, but for what we were doing, it was intriguing. And so that was my first kind of introduction to wine. I couldn't pick raspberry, strawberry, cherry out of the glass. I knew there was white and red, but through time and years being there, I started to learn a little bit, and I knew I really enjoyed it. It was always something like my friends and relationships, we'd always have a glass of wine at the end of the night or after a shift, if it wasn't Fernet or beers or Irish car bombs or something like that.
Irish car bombs.
But there was a connection there that I felt, and I was intrigued, but also a little intimidated. And then throughout the years of traveling, I was very lucky to find jobs while traveling abroad. I lived off the coast of Honduras for a year. I was a dive master by day and working at a restaurant at night. And it was actually one of the best restaurants on this little island in Rotan. And they had a little tasting menu, and there was a tiny little wine program, but I was still connected to it, which is crazy. So like some South American and some, Far Niente, Cabernet was on the list. And I just thought it was so cool that even though I'm so far away from where I started, there was a connection, and and still passion. And the way it was all supposed to unfold. And before I had left for that island adventure, I was actually working at an incredible restaurant, Marin. At the time, it was called Murray Circle. And my friend Dan O'Brien, who makes amazing wines in Sonoma, you might know Gale Wines. He was the wine director. He came out from the East Coast, and I think he was 30 years old, and he had a grand award-winning wine list in Marin County at a restaurant that was literally farm to table that hadn't, again, I've been in the business for so long and grew up there. I hadn't seen anything like it before. And he really opened up this whole world of wine. And I don't even know if he knows how much of an impact he had on me. And I'll never forget, actually, I think it was my first aha moment. He had a bottle wrapped in foil, and he poured me a taste, and he was like, what do you think this is? And I was like, I don't know, but this is incredible. And forgive me for not remembering the producer, but it was Chevy Chambertin. And I was like, I need more of this in my life. And that was kind of the let's see what this is about. But I really wanted to do some travel, and I ended up getting a job on this island. It was supposed to be a 2-month trip that turned into a year. And then I was totally into the diving scene and came back because I kind of had to come back to my life again.
At some point.
And a friend of mine got me a job at, which is now no longer at the Westfield. I don't even know if the Westfield exists anymore.
Not technically,
yeah. But Lark Creek Steak, Bradley Ogden's steakhouse. And I came back right before, it was the day I flew into San Diego from Costa Rica, and the day the Giants sealed going into the playoffs, and that was the year that they won the World Series in 2010. And I was working at the steakhouse, and it was Brian Newman who was running the program. It was all domestic, super cool guy. And so there was that connection there. And then one day, it was right around the holidays, I went to go visit Bob Davis, who was the opening general manager who hired me at Murray Circle back in 2008, to say Merry Christmas. And Michael Mina, restaurant Michael Mina, just reopened at the old Aqua location. I walked in, I'm going, this is like magical. This is the dream. I felt like I didn't even belong. It was just, there was so much energy. And he comes up and he said, I said Merry Christmas, gave him a Christmas card. And he said, are you looking for a job? And I wasn't even, I'm like, I have a job, Bob, but okay, sure, I'll interview. Yeah. And, a few weeks in, after several interviews, they hired me, and it was the wine director, Josiah Baldovino, who he is the main reason I really got into wine. I used to wear my dive watch every night on the floor to remember to get back to the ocean. Right. And I was just going back to save some money to buy some equipment, become an instructor, and go live the island dream. Yeah. But there was something about the Mina environment and the wine department specifically that I never looked back. Eventually the dive watch came off, and I just was like hitting the books, studying. In the wine team with Jenna and Cody as well. They welcomed me with open arms, and it was intense and it was difficult, but it was also really exciting. This is back 2011, 2012, and there was a lot of people in the community here in San Francisco. This is before Somm came out, but it was like this fervor of people really wanting to get into becoming a sommelier. I think it was just I think as an adult, truth be told, I think I'm a smart person, but I might not have gotten the best of grades in high school. But when you're an adult and you're into something, you get really into it. So studying was a joy. I look back fondly. I had cartridges of flashcards. I think for the certified exam, which was 70 questions, I think I came in with about 3,500 or 4,000 questions prepared. Great. Way overdone. Yeah. But there was that joy of like learning and diving into it and understanding. And, and the other thing is you think you know a lot, but you don't know anything. So that was also exciting too. It's like as soon as you thought you knew something, you would hopefully get humbled along the way, and want to learn more and get deeper and deeper into it. So that's really it. I was with the Mina Group for about 7 years. I'm forever grateful for that experience. And then I just serendipitously was talking to a friend back in 2018, and I was in between things, and he said there might be something at Stapert, and kind of the rest was history. And I mean, since I've been with them, it's gone to a level I never would have dreamed. So that's the kind of the long and short of my 30-year span, with some, odd restaurant jobs in between. But we don't need to talk about those necessarily.
Sure.
But yeah, it's been quite the journey. I never really would have pictured being where I am today. But it's been such a joy. What I really look back on fondly is the group of people when we were all kind of studying and doing tasting groups, the blind tastings. We were at one point, it was like 3 a week, which gets kind of expensive, but it was fun. We had the serious one at Michael Mina, and then we had a fun one at California Wine Merchant over on Chestnut. I had one out of my house, and we were always hanging out, and it just that community, I think, and watching everybody their career blossom and move on to other things as well was definitely one of the highlights of the experience, for sure.
I think that's beautifully said. Is like one of the things that I love is seeing, Kevin Monk with Chambers and Chambers retired last year, and he was with Chambers for 28 years, and getting to watch him and John Lancaster say their goodbyes, and him say goodbye to Debbie and Peter at the Ferry Plaza, and seeing that generation and how close knit they were. And I, when I first moved to San Francisco and got into the wine industry, it was like very lonely, and it was like, I don't know anybody, and I don't know how to get into these tasting groups, and it was always kind of like, it wasn't like closed by any means. It was just like I didn't have the confidence, I don't think, to like go out there and like push my way in. But now I'm watching, people move into these positions at all these restaurants. And I'm like, this is so awesome. I'm so excited, because like either well-deserved or about time, or like, that's great. And now where are they going to go?
No, totally. And you mentioned some great names there. I worked for Farallon as the head sommelier. Yeah, I was Luke Kenning was the wine director, and he was fantastic. And the general manager, Dale, they were just really lovely and welcomed me with open arms. I was actually my first real big sommelier job. And so I met John several times. I'll never forget when I had my little dining stipend, and I took my friends to Boulevard, and I had the wine list in front of me, and I'm trying to, kind of like, I'll pick something. And John's kind of going, you want me to guide you? You want me to pick things? Yeah. And eventually I'm going, you know what, let's close this. Yeah. And he was the master. Yeah. It's like, oh, this guy, he doesn't even have to think about it. He knows exactly what to do. And he just created such an incredible experience. And I'm going, that's kind of who I want to emulate, is just that organic, natural. And then there was that group of people, there's John, there's Raj Par, of course. And there's Larry Stone, and quite a few others, where it was a different generation. Certainly. And then then this younger generation comes in, and then I will say, a little worried what the next generation was going to do, because COVID was happening, and a lot of people were going back into the restaurant business, people taking on multiple roles, people moving away, and the sommelier and what that embodied, and wine director, I feel like it was a little delicate, and we didn't know. We didn't know, and I was afraid that it was just going to go away completely, and it doesn't look to be that way. But when you're in the middle of a pandemic, everything feels like
everything feels like the end of the world.
Yeah, everything feels like the end of the world. Yeah. So I mean, I'm really, to your point, I'm really excited to see, and once we started doing more tastings, and when the world opened up, and meeting the new people, and then I'm seeing them more regularly, I feel that sense of community is definitely here in the city. And like just hanging out with you and your wife a second ago, and your beautiful little daughter, it's like, oh my God. And then talking about all the people that you surround yourselves with, it's really beautiful, and it's invigorating, because sometimes it gets a little bit lonely when you're working a lot, and you forget where your roots came from, of why you got there in the first place. And so being a part of this, and just seeing all these familiar faces around town is definitely one of my favorite parts of the job, for sure, is that community.
Community is so important. And I think especially, like you hit the nail on the head, it can be a really isolating industry. You go to work and you exhaust your social battery. And then you go home and like, I don't want to fucking hang out with anybody.
Oh,
or,
yeah.
or you go,
Absolutely.
well, I want to see them, but I just don't have the energy, or I want to see them, but then I'll be burned out all week next week. And you kind of start to like, create this like limit to your bandwidth.
Yeah.
And I think that like in some ways good, but in some ways bad, right? It's like this, we have this really interesting juxtaposition as an industry where we're so social.
Yeah.
And we spend so much time being happy, making people happy, and, you know, creating dreams and kind of like, you know, weaving these experiences. And then, you know, you go home and you're just like, I just want to unplug.
You're giving everything.
Yeah.
You're being in a sommelier is a steward of wine. You're in hospitality. You're at the service of others, and it's not just the people sitting at the table or across the bar. It's not just the guests. It's the staff. It's everybody you work with. All of the people that you're connected with. Whether it's sales reps or winemakers, but it's all hospitality driven in the most beautiful of ways. But to your point, it can really drain you, because it takes, if you really care about it. It's going to take a lot of energy, and then you need to reset so that you can go back out there and do it again each and every day. So yeah, sometimes it's good to go home and just veg out and watch whatever you want to watch, or however you like to relax. I have found in some instances where I just wanted to say no, and I go, you know what, I really need to force myself to just go for a little bit, whatever this event is, and then I go home and I go, thank God I said yes.
Yeah.
Why didn't I do this more often? You got to pick and choose. Maybe you can't do it all the time, but it's really important that you don't say no to everything. You have to stay. We like people. Yeah. You know, I always say, like, I'm an extrovert, but then I really don't want to be around people. And then when I go out to dinner, sometimes I go solo. I do not sit at a table. I sit at the bar, and I hope to God I meet some people I'm going to be talking to.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't want to deal with people. Yeah. And I'm like, where are the people?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to deal with people.
Yeah.
That?
Yeah. Can I eavesdrop and insert myself into your conversation now? Yes, exactly. So yeah, no, it's it's a balance. But what a beautiful balance. I don't know about you, but I oftentimes think about what other people do for work. I feel, maybe this is just personally, when people ask me what I do, I get my eyes light up and I get really passionate. And I don't think a lot of people get to say that aren't in this part of the business, in the restaurant business, you know, around food, around wine, around cocktails. There's a level of passion that sings to everybody, but not everybody's in the business. That you know, some people, you know, they might. I'm a real estate agent, and they may try to sell you a house right there or whatever. But rarely do people really want to talk about what, you know, what how they make their income and whatnot. And it's not that way with what we do. As stressful as it can be, there's other jobs that I'd have in another life I can think of. Maybe a professional athlete
or a diver.
A diver, yeah. But I think what we do is so enriching, and you can't put a dollar sign on it. That in the connections that we make is a lot of people long for that and they never get it. So, I feel very grateful. Yeah, and it's not slowing down. You know, I may look 25, but I'm so old, and I'm so glad that I'm still going. You know.
Well, I mean, you know, I think that I think maybe that's the trade-off, is because we love so much of what we do and we put so much passion into what we do. I'm curious if like that's the trade-off. We dump all of our energy into our work because it's what we love, and then when we're home, we don't have that hobby or that you know, I've got to go to the game. I've got to go to every game. I got tickets this season. And if you do, it's great, because then again, you're finding passion outside. But.
Yeah, you know, that's actually a really good point. Going back to balance, it's like, I don't have kids, but I know people that do, and you work and then you have your kids, and if you don't actually take some time for yourself, or you as you and your partner, to do things that you always enjoy doing, it's a slippery slope, and it takes work to have fun.
Oh yeah.
You know, so the times where I've had to decline, like going to a Warrior game or something, I don't want to look back and, you know, regret not being out there as much and having experiences, because I will say I love checking in with like the staff and like, hey, how was your weekend? Or you're going on vacation, what are you doing? And I get a little envious. There's the part of me is like, I haven't taken a vacation. Every time I do a vacation, it's a work one. I'm like, you know, if I'm in Germany, it's all work related.
Right.
But I get envious because it's like, oh, I'm going to go kayaking in Colorado, and somebody just recently got back from Bryce Canyon in Utah, and I'm going, God, that sounds amazing. And the thing is, it's like, I can do it. We can do it. You got to work to make it happen.
Yep.
You save money, whatever it may be, to get there.
When you're tired and you get home, you need to research it. You need to book the tickets. You need to book your hotel or your kayak or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds awful. I hate the idea of it. But that is the part where you really have to be intentional and not forget yourself through all of this. And I think hospitality-driven people put themselves at the very back of the line. And like I said, slippery slope, it can be pretty unhealthy in the long run. So finding balance, again, is so important. And that way you can look back when you're 56 years old and go, instead of, God, I wish I did this and this and this, it's more like, I got to do this. Let me tell you some fun stories about it. You know, that was a big reason why I started traveling in my 20s. Is I'd never really done anything like that before, and I knew that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't take that step to go to Southeast Asia or Central America or wherever it may be. As scary and daunting as it was, you know, Americans, we don't travel that much. Right. I think in our community we travel quite a bit, but back 20 years ago, I think the statistic was, and I'm making the statistic up if you will, I think the amount of American citizens that had a passport was something around 8%. Wow. And then Mexico required it, so it jumped up hugely, so people could go to Mexico. But that's telling.
That's as close as as far as you could go.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to go to Tijuana and have fun for a weekend. But that was,
I went to Cabo. I stayed in all-inclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, did you leave the hotel?
No,
nope.
You just stayed in the swim-up bar and drank Coronas halfway underwater. So like that was a moment where I'm like, I don't want to be part of that. And when I went out in the world, I found very few Americans that were out there, for better or for worse. But so anyway, it's important to make time for yourself, especially us industry people, because we tend to not do that. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, it's really easy to get really far down the line and then look back and go like, what did I do this for? Yeah.
But I think that's anybody. And then again, you also touched on a really great point, which is that we're very lucky that in our industry, travel is often encouraged. And not only is travel encouraged, but if you're going to go to Italy, you're going to go to France, you're going to go to Germany, like especially at the Somm level, you're going to go to these wineries. You know, you're going to get to meet these people. You're going to get to see their estate. Maybe they let you stay there. You're going to have a nice meal.
They're going to cook for you.
You're going to drink dope shit.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, now I'm having an experience that the 1% would have.
Yes.
As non-1%er.
In the much more enjoyable way.
Yeah.
Because they're bringing, it's much more familial. They're bringing you in and welcoming you with open arms, as virtually every winemaker around the planet does. They're, a lot of them, they're just farmers, you know, and they're humble, and you pick up on that right away. And a lot of the 1%ers are wanting a completely different experience that I'm not denigrating that whatsoever. Like, good for them. You can fly there on a private jet and have like a 3 Michelin star meal wherever you go. That sounds amazing, but also, where's the connection?
Yeah, I want to sit with the grandma.
Yeah.
I want to hear her stories.
Oh, 100%.
Or I want her to talk to me and me not understand her and just be like, we're best friends.
Yeah, no, I love it when you've had dinner with somebody for 2 hours, you've barely spoken, there's no common language, but you feel like, and you're hugging and kissing on the way out, and you can't wait to see them. Yeah. That's such an incredible feeling that that we're privileged to have in our jobs.
We're very lucky.
Yeah.
You touched on some amazing things, and I really wrote down, it takes work to have fun. I think that's a really cool thought, and that's a really cool statement. And I mean, maybe somebody said it to me before, but I've never heard it. And I wrote that down. That's important to me. You also, earlier on, you were mentioning the Mina Group, and you were mentioning your time in the Mina Group, and it's such a heralded, place where so many amazing people have worked. And, what do you think for you set that group aside from so many other places when it came to an experience as a somm?
That's a great question. And it's important to note that most of my career has been spent very, very locally. I wasn't one of the people that went off to New York and worked for Danny Meyer or other great restaurateurs, and which you get a real people that go off to 11 Madison Park, what have you, and they bounced around. Like, that's so cool. That's so cool. So my North Star for the longest time was the Mina Group, and I think rightfully so. I mean, Michael has, especially when he, he had 2 stars at the Westin, but when I came back and the new hot restaurant was an old one, it was Michael Mina at Aqua. What separated him apart, I think, was one is the Bay Area. He had several restaurants. Also, he cares so much about not just food. I mean, that's given, that's number one, but he cares so much about service and hospitality. He also highly values his wine teams. He feels like they're equally important. And I had never worked somewhere that was so humbling. Some of it was not necessarily from here, but like fear-based, because you wanted to succeed. You didn't want to fail your team. And you didn't want to look like the weak link on the chain. So it motivated you, and really you fell into the service of others, and you check your ego at the door. But funnily enough, you feel good about yourself. It's almost like volunteer work. It helps everybody, but darn it, doesn't make you feel good, and you're going to tell everybody next time you see him at the dog park or whatever. But that's okay. It's meant to work that way. So you felt really good about making others feel really good. And I think that he just had that in spades, because he was able to do that at other restaurants, that consistency. It was almost like a competitive nature of how hard people could work. Now that can burn you out.
Sure.
I don't recommend pedal to the metal all the time, but when you're in it together and then you're going out afterwards, and I remember so fondly, I've still connected with a lot of the people from the Mina, Michael Mina, the flagship, and then I did open up Bourbon Steak and Pub with my best friend back in 2014. But we would spend holidays together. We had people had families. New Year's Eve, we had a couple of days off. We all went up to a cabin together after we'd been doing service together. We just couldn't wait to see each other. Whether it was meeting up before a shift and then going out after a shift. Exactly. And that really, I think, was one of my favorite parts of being a part of Michael Mina Group. And you could see it at other places too. And also when you would, with him having restaurants around the Bay Area, Pabu and RN74. Oh God, I miss RN74. You'd see all of them, and there was that family, that community. Even though you weren't working every night together, you got it. It's like I worked for the Mina Group, and you were bonded. And I think that's what he was able to create and build on after all these years. So again, like, I'm forever grateful for the foundation that he and everybody that works for his company that I was involved with. I wouldn't be where I am today at all without Chef Mina and everybody that works for him.
That's awesome. That's cool. I love to hear that. Yeah, I've always thought, I wish I got to work with this group, or I wish I got to work in that group. And it's like, if I only had, another 150 years, I would get to do all the things I wanted to do, but I don't.
I know.
So that's one of the things that I was really, that was one of the notes I wrote, because I thought, like, everybody that I've ever talked to has nothing but great things to say about the Mina Group. So yeah,
it's great.
Also, you'd mentioned travel for work. You'd mentioned Germany, and we were kind of talking a little bit before the podcast, other places you'd been. It sounds like you've been to Germany a few times. Is it safe to assume that Germany is your favorite place that you've been on a work trip?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been to Germany 3 times, 2019, May 22, and then just this last April into May of 2024. And it goes without saying, when you get to invite, the honor and privilege of getting invited on these trips, I mean, keep in mind, they can only bring so many people. So the fact that they're picking you, and we know how dense the restaurant scene is and the wine culture is in the Bay Area, and then in the, the North Bay. And then, of course, if it's a trip that's involving other buyers from around the country or maybe the world, you have to take into consideration New York and Chicago and LA and whatnot.
Other massive markets
that you got picked. Like that right there is like, never, first of all, I want to say, be humble by that. Never take that for granted, because the moment you start taking it for granted, you don't deserve it anymore. You have to show appreciation and gratitude that you get to be a part of it. And so, yeah, I feel like perhaps the universe is just saying that Germany was the place I was meant to go back to. And I would go back as much as I possibly could, because well, the best parts of traveling is you can come in with preconceived notions, and then you get there, you go, oh, I already knew it was going to be amazing. It's even more than I possibly could imagine. Or I thought the sunny disposition of the Germans, and actually they're all so incredibly nice and friendly. And like, talk about family. Like, every time you go visit a producer, they are just over the top with hospitality. They're humbled to see you. You have to remember, like, you're important to them as well. You're the ones selling, passionate about their wines and selling to people from all over the country when they come to the restaurants. So each and every time, big surprise, I fall in love with Germany more and more and more. And my addiction to all things Riesling, from sparkling to sweet and everything in between, is it's becoming a problem. Really,
I don't think it's a problem.
No. Yeah. I want all the wines. But in the relationships you create, I've been fortunate to create some really incredible relationships with a couple producers in particular that we actually have our own label with.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned that, but it all started with Weingut Rehboltz in the Falls. We have a Muscateller at all three restaurants by the glass.
So cool.
That has on the side a sticker with our restaurant logos. And I'm proud to say that just recently, Johann Baptiste Schaefer and the Naha, we now have our own wine with them, exclusive.
That's awesome.
Trocken by the glass at all three. So when you come in, you'll see the restaurants, State Bird Provisions, Progress, and Anchovy Bar, right front and center by the JB
cool.
Schaefer, in full color and everything. And, of course, I'm proud of that, and I get to have some bragging rights, but also I wouldn't have been able to do that without Chef Stuart and Nicole and where I work and the relationships they have and people's desire to be a part of it, whatever that means, whether it's a wine relationship or just coming in to dine at the restaurants. Right. So through these journeys of going to Germany and I don't think it would have happened if I had not gone multiple times and gotten to really meet these people. I've had the pleasure of going to Prüm twice now.
Wow.
And JJ Prüm wines are just through the roof. And it's because I keep going there and meeting them. And I think the first time I went there, I met the entire family, the matriarch and patriarch, and then the daughter and the husband, and then their child, and then I think the family dog came in at one point, and it was just this incredible experience. So I do want and need to go to other parts of certainly of Europe, but Germany just seems to have what the wines I just find to be some of the most compelling wines on the planet.
Hook in you.
It's got the hook in you. Yeah. By the way, the price of what those wines are compared to what were other famous areas of the world, I mean, you can't find better wine for the price.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when I was at Chambers, we had the Montevecano from Robert Weil, and you look at that wine and you're like, wow, that wine's really expensive. But then you look at Chevalier Montrachet and you go, it's a lot less expensive than that.
Yeah, 100%, right? Like the GGs of all those top VDP producers, short of like Keller.
Right.
They are still relatively affordable compared to Grand Cru Burgundy, like leaps and bounds. And hopefully it stays that way for a little while. but that remains to be seen. Who knows? In 10 years, maybe they may be ripping up Riesling and planting Syrah in the Mosel. Sorry, did I ruin everything?
No.
Oh man, we had such a good thing going.
No, I think it's fascinating that you bring that up, because that's something that I think I've seen a lot more on social media, and it's really big with the New York kids. I follow a lot of like New York Somms and stuff, just trying to stay in touch with what's going on, maybe like nationwide, and as much as I can through the scope of social media. And that's one of the things that they're all into now, is like there's these big like German Pinot Noir tasting panels, and everybody's on German Pinot, and it's like, that's amazing, but alarming at the same time, because every region is making it now. It's not the Pfalz, it's not the warmer regions, it's the Mosel.
The Mosel
growing
There's
Pinot Noir.
Cabernet Sauvignon in the Mosel.
Holy shit!
Actually, it's really. I've only tasted one. It's Stein, brought in from Von Boden.
Yeah,
and my goodness, those wines are spectacular.
Really?
12.5% alcohol. Oh, and they age so beautifully.
Cool.
But at the same time, it's a little alarming that what we're talking about is these, Pinot thrives in cooler climates, but it's certainly not a cold climate grape. It needs a little bit of sun and a little bit of warmth. So everyone's talking about the Pinots coming in, and the Pinots are really, really good. Yeah. The Chardonnays coming out of Germany are insane.
I haven't had a Chardonnay.
Yeah, you can get really good Chardonnay and pour it on a wine list for $15 a glass.
Yeah.
So it will, without going too far down that depressing rabbit hole that is climate change, we'll see. But the tradition still goes on. I think they've been making wine for well over 2,000 years in those places, and I just don't want the prices to go too high. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been spending a lot more time talking about Austrian wine and looking into Austrian wine, and realizing that some of the producers in the Wachau want to move away from the Federspiel and Smaragd label, because now like everybody can make Smaragd, right? Like everybody makes a ripe style because everything's warm now. Right. And so now it's not special. And they're talking
How
about
do you feel about
like
Smaragds?
AOC. It
do
depends.
You like them?
Yeah, I feel like I really like some Smaragd Gruners and some Smaragd Rieslings that I've had, but it's Emmerich Knoll.
Yeah.
So that's different. I'm drinking some of the best there are, right?
Yeah.
Without necessarily placing my stone on the field. Like, I think that those are some of the best wines coming out of the Wachau.
Oh, 100%.
And so I think that they're done well, but now that it's getting riper and everything's getting bigger, like how many of those are going to turn flabby?
Right.
And within that realm, to touch back on the Mosel concern is like, aside from the concern of global warming and the impact that it's going to have on the wine growing region, also, how long is it until Dornfelder becomes not extinct but neglected? I mean, it's always been neglected, but and then it's just a wave until the Italians have rediscovered all of their local varieties, and Germany will start to go back to their local varieties, maybe.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like with global warming, is when I was there last, it sounds like the antithesis of warming when people get hit by frost. Right. But I was there with Korteuserhof got pretty much wiped out the day that we went there to visit them. That morning, everything got hit by frost. But what they were all saying is you can still find incredible Trockens, GGs, Cabinets, Spätlese, but the Beerenauslese, the TBAs, the ice wines, they're like we don't barely even make them anymore. And if anyone's ever tried those wines, those are very singular in terms of the drinking experience. They're absolutely insanely delicious, and they're not just for cheese or foie gras. They can go with a lot of savory dishes, and you can tell that a lot of the German winemakers their hearts are breaking that they don't even have an opportunity to make them anymore because of the change of the climate. So that's sad. Hopefully it shifts the other way and it's cyclical, but there was a heavy heart when I was there in 2024 where they were so pleased with Cabinets and Spätlese, but the stuff that they really love as well is the sweet wines, and it's not really. They're not making them as much anymore.
Those are also the wines that they're going to leave for their great grandchildren. Yeah, those are. You talk about a library wine, like that's literally like an archive wine, right? You can lay it down, you can ignore it forever, and not only that, it's some of the most highly regarded and some of the most collectible wines they make. Oh yeah. So when all of a sudden your cornerstones start being removed, it's like it's really hard to have that stable structure when, all I'm selling is $12 to $20 bottles of wine.
Yeah.
Great.
And I mentioned earlier, like aha moments. I think us as sommeliers, we talk about aha moments. And when you drink those wines, it kind of takes you to another place. It makes you kind of, we need this more in our life. How intense and connected we are. We need to pull back and give ourselves time. And when you take a sip of something like that, it's like kind of forces you to go, you know what? Like take a beat, whether it's you're in a restaurant setting and like it's busy, but like take a second to enjoy that, because you're going to go, holy shit.
All
is
the
that
noise falls
fucking
away.
Delicious. 100%. Like I've never tried anything like that. And you can try multiple ones. I've never tried anything like that. I went to a JJ Prim seminar here in the city, hosted by German Wine Collection. I remember they pulled out some older, sweeter wines, and just a whole room of incredible professionals, all kind of just were like,
Was this the one at Angler recently?
Yeah.
I saw that. I didn't get to go, but I watched from the other room long ago.
But just to watch everybody, your peers and mentors and everyone just take a breath and go, oh, wow, this is pure deliciousness. Like nothing else in the world exists like this. Those aha moments, they're going to continue to happen, but I wonder what they're going to look like, what the regions are going to be, and what the grapes are going to be.
The English sparkling is life-changing.
Those are good. They're kind of pricey.
Good. They're expensive.
But they're pretty compelling.
I have a small note here that I really wanted to give to you, to just, not to say that, we take interactions in the restaurant industry sometimes not for granted, or not that you just don't think about them enough, because sometimes they can be small interactions, but they're hugely impactful for people. You had somebody dine with you recently, and they wanted to send me a special note and tell me how much they loved their experience and how incredible everything was, and that they can't wait for one day for us to go there together. So Vince, who's been on the podcast recently from Trattoria Contadina.
God, he's such a lovely human.
He's so great.
I met his girlfriend, and
Rebecca. Yeah. They were celebrating early Valentine's Day, and they said you took incredible care of them. And he said, when you see Adam, please tell him how much I appreciated everything and how incredible the experience was. And he's like, I don't know if you've been there yet or not, but we have to go together.
Oh yeah.
So
thank you, Vince. When he walked in the door, my eyes lit up, because I've seen him around the tastings, and he's one of the good ones. He's got such a kind heart, and he's genuine, and he cares about hospitality. And what I love about him is his humility. Mm-hmm. It's like he knows that he doesn't know all the things, which means he knows a lot. Yeah. And
the most important thing.
The most important thing. And then he's going to continue to build on that and that knowledge, and it's going to come from the most organic place, rather than some, unfortunately, whatever career it could be. But, with some sommeliers, they overcompensate for a lack of knowledge, and it has some ramifications. It can, put a bad taste in a guest's mouth, and then they're afraid of somms, or afraid of wine. Mm-hmm. They're just going to go order cocktails and beer. And, we're supposed to really welcome everybody with a big warm hug and not lord our knowledge over people. And he embodies that so much. And it's, we're talking about the community here, and he's definitely one of the people that is only enhancing the community here in the Bay Area, for sure. I'm so happy to know him, and that was a really sweet message, and I can't wait to see how the trajectory of his career.
It's gonna be so great.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree. There's people that are like effusively hospitality people, right? And he's one of those people that, like, we'll be out somewhere just drinking, and somebody walks by and he goes, "Oh, excuse me." It's just one of those, like, it's instinctual, right? And and it's so cool. And he's been so great to me. He was one of the first accounts that I called on at Chambers, and I remember going in and being like really intimidated. I had been in sales before at Glazers and Southern Glazers, and I walked in and I was like, "Oh, it's this young guy," and he was like really friendly, and like he clearly knew more about my producers than I knew, and he never once like made me feel like shit about it. You know what I mean? And I remember like his patience, and he would call and place orders, and he would have to I'd go like, okay, what was it again? Okay, which one of those wines again? And it would take me a really long time not a really long time. It'd take me longer than it would take somebody that's seasoned to place the order. And he was just always patient. And it was always just this like this kindness and humility. And, you know, we've talked about already that kind of like Dunning-Kruger effect of like thinking you know everything, realizing you don't know anything, gaining that humility. And that humility is such an important part. And I think that we're very, I'm not the religious type, but we're very blessed to live in San Francisco and to work in San Francisco and have access to all these ridiculous wines that we have access to. Sometimes people get fast tracked to the front and they don't have the appreciation for everything in between. Like, what's your favorite wine? Dujac. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You know, great. But what do you drink on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What do you drink when you're not drinking someone else's wine?
Right, exactly.
So I know you cracked that bottle and sold it to a guest and maybe you proofed it, but I know you didn't buy that Dujac.
Yeah,
I know what sommeliers make.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. And no shade on Dujac.
No.
Like,
hey, of course. Well, by the way, you're on the hook for coming in with Vince now. You said it on the podcast.
I will.
So you now are you're required.
We've been meaning to meet with him and Rebecca and go out to dinner anytime. But I mean, as mentioned earlier before the podcast, it's very infrequent that we get time away from the kiddo. So,
well, that makes sense, but also who wouldn't want to spend every second with your adorable daughter?
Thank you. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that until it's bedtime sometimes. And then we put her to bed and we just sit on the couch and it's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. You need those moments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's our decompress
That's
moment.
your decompress moment.
Like, sink into the couch.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to brain rot for 15 minutes. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
We just jack in, you know. And
I have a bone to pick with people that are like, you know, those people that it's like, please forgive me, but it's like, you know how you know someone's a vegan? They tell you they're a vegan. The people that are like, I don't watch TV. I don't own a TV. And it's like, okay, that's great. You read, like, good for you. But like, you know what? Sometimes I just want to zone out and watch Law and Order or just a show. And that's what you need. And it's not about like, you just have to have the very best braggadocious thing out there. It's just sinking into a couch and decompressing for a moment. That way you can, wake up and do it all over again. That's
what somebody said to me the other day. I said, and this is my bone to pick with the non-drinking community. And I've always said, if you're not drinking because you have a problem, I 100% support it. If you're not drinking because you're actually concerned about your health, I support it. But if you're not drinking out of just like a status, then I don't support it necessarily. But I said it to somebody the other day. I said something about like, oh yeah, the non-drinkers, well, why would people not drink? Because they want to be healthy. And they go, yeah, but meanwhile they're snorting cocaine. Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good point.
Whatever it might be.
Or whatever it is. And it's just about, substituting one for the other, right? Yeah. And it's not necessarily the answer, but I don't know. It'd be great if we could find a balance everywhere.
Couldn't agree with you more. And I do admire, a friend of mine was talking about this younger generation, how they are more in touch with the fact that they have anxiety, more anxiety than our human brain has not evolved to deal with what we are surrounded with. And it's happening faster than ever, and it's not slowing down. And the fact that they know that they have such extreme anxiety and that alcohol will exacerbate it, I applaud them. Yeah, that is very ahead of the game. I also think that, to your point, there's a balance. Whatever this is delicious. Nice. And you're not. I mean, granted, hats off to the NA companies that are making some really interesting, compelling, non-alcoholic. There's some cool stuff out there. There is definitely, and we have to start working with it. But you're not going to get that experience with this, and it's not necessarily about alcohol in a glass, but the alcohol contributes to the texture of the wine and the drinking experience. And sometimes having a nice glass of wine at the end of a long day is just as therapeutic as not having any. And then, of course, if you're snorting a bunch of cocaine, then we're talking about something completely different. But like it's almost like they're robbing themselves of a little bit of joy. Which saddens us. Us wine drinkers. I mean, it's kind of concerning that I've been saying that a lot. I apologize. I guess I'm concerned about a lot. I don't blame you. One of the things that's fascinating to me is that humans have been drinking wine for thousands of years. And only now
is it an issue, right?
Right.
And not to say that there's not important things to be considered, like, you know, the cancer warning, does it contribute? How much are you drinking? You know, like, obviously, if you're pounding a bottle of wine a day, every day for the rest of your life, it's probably going to be a shorter life, right? Like, I'm not saying that, but if you're overwhelmed, you have crippling anxiety, it's like, well, maybe look at all the other things that are happening in your life as well.
Yeah.
Alcohol can certainly be something that's exacerbating it the next day, but if you're overstimulated, or you're too stressed out about money, or you're too stressed out about spending too much time on your phone, you're working too hard, you have an unhealthy work-life balance, like, those are all kind of more, I think, the root causes of the problem. And then hopefully when you're able to remove alcohol and take a step back and look at things and put things into check, you can come back to it whenever you're ready.
Right.
You know, it's like I don't drink, I'll never drink again for the rest of my life.
It's promises are made to be broken.
Yeah.
You know, go easy on yourself.
Right.
And
Go easy on yourself.
You know, it's like, it's interesting. We can talk about something kind of granular like a glass of wine, but really it also comes back to the bigger picture and going easy on we're really hard on ourselves. And it's the way the whole mass consumerism is built is to make you feel shitty about yourself and buy something to make yourself feel.
You need the shortcut.
You need the shortcut. And if we were just a little softer and kinder to ourselves, like, don't beat yourself. Like, I'm not going to drink this entire week, and you're out with friends, and there might be a really delicious bottle of wine on the table, and it's like, no, if I do that, I suck.
Yeah.
And you really just want to enjoy some of it. And it's like, don't rob yourself of the joy of doing it just because you're being dogmatic about like this box you're putting yourself in, because there's everything's black and white. It's really it's hard to navigate life.
Yeah.
Life happens in the gray. The gray is way more fun.
Yeah, the gray is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. If everyone out there's if people out there on the black and the white, come to the gray.
Yeah, come to the gray.
It's so much more fun.
The world's better with color.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
That's beautiful. I love that. We also kind of touched on this earlier, but I really want to highlight this because this is a big thing for the podcast, and that is consolidation of roles. And maybe in your case it's not, because I obviously don't have the full context. But you know, the amount of things that you're doing compared to the amount of things you were doing before the pandemic, let's say, and obviously Anchovy Bar is post-pandemic property, if I'm not mistaken.
Really actually in the middle of it.
Right.
October 2020.
Oh,
I know. It was supposed to be April, but obviously that got pushed forward. But yeah.
Do you think that the scale of what you're doing now is significantly more because of Anchovy Bar, or do you think it's because of consolidation of roles? And to expand upon that question maybe is to also say, like, you know, do you see a light at the end of the tunnel? Do you see a sustainability to this?
Yeah. Gosh. That's a great question. I think one thing that is really in my favor is we basically are all on the same block.
That's
you know,
goddamn good point.
I mean, it's not lost on me that I don't mind using the word blessed. You mentioned it earlier. It's not necessarily a religious thing, but how blessed are we that we are you know, Stapled and Progress are right next to each other, including the workshop upstairs, which is also very busy, the private dining space. So it's like another little restaurant. And then Anchovy Bar is right around the corner. So if I want to, and all the wine is stored in the cellar underneath the two, you know, Progress and Stapled.
Right.
If I want to bring wine over to Anchovy Bar, it's really not a huge deal. Not everybody that runs more than one restaurant has that luxury. The only other people I can think of is like Quince, Cattonia, and Verjus.
Sure.
That Verjus back open.
Yeah.
But where in the city do you find multiple restaurants right kind of next to each other? So that makes it easier for sure and more manageable. And I started as the Stapled AGM and wine director back in 2018. I always had visions of being a beverage director, and as time progressed, I did envision it with Chef Stuart and Chef Nicole, and then the pandemic hit. And fortunately, because of my dedication to them and just, I love working for them so much, I was very fortunate to be hired back almost immediately with 2 other managers for front of house and a small back of house team. And that was it. You know, we were doing takeaway, and every day we were trying to figure out how to do takeaway. I mean, the word pivot was thrown around more than that was the theme word.
Yeah.
Probably for everybody. Everybody. And that's what you had to do.
Yeah.
I'd never thought about selling wine on DoorDash. And that was one of the last things we did. We're like, do we want to do the delivery? But yeah, you know, you're trying to survive. You do anything you can.
You want a bottle of champagne delivered?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, let's do it.
I actually had some fun with it. I had a whole poetic prose, made everything kind of funny to entice people. But I knew that I had put myself in a great position to take on the role. I didn't know how it was gonna look when we started really reopening things. And you know, it's been so many years now. I just celebrated 7 years with the company.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. February 5th. And then I told the staff, it's like, I feel like I'm just getting started in a lot of ways. It definitely helps to have people that support you, believe in you, and trust you. And I have that wholeheartedly with Chef Stewart and Chef Nicole and our other managing partner, Elizabeth DePalmer, or Eli. You know, she's one of my closest friends, and they trust me. And that frees you up to not feel like you're failing or making a lot of mistakes, even when you do make a mistake, because you can go to them and say, hey, this is what's going on. Hey, it's okay. Well, it'll all work itself out. We know that you take this very seriously.
Right.
So that right there has empowered me to run 3 restaurants almost autonomously. You know, they trust that I'm going to, of course, help them run the business. That's first and foremost the most important part. I want to do my part so that we're not just surviving, but we're thriving.
Right.
And then it also helps to have incredible people around you. When you have a kitchen team that is just nailing it all the time and their communication is incredible, it's one less thing that you have to be concerned with. If you have a great front of house management team that's, you know, running everything as smooth as can be, you know, we all know about call outs and things of that nature, and the fact that they all just rally and talking about doing multiple roles. You know, I have multiple restaurants, but they're oftentimes stepping in wherever they possibly can, and they're not necessarily the manager of the floor anymore. It's one less thing for me to worry about. A credible events manager is very helpful for me it's not necessarily a burden and overwhelming. So and then the last thing I will say, and this is the most important part, is organization. That is the key.
We could all use more of that.
Is organization. It's almost like a drug for me. As I talk about, it's, you know, Chris, it's ironic that I get made fun of for using the technologies that are being developed by the kids today. AI, voice to text, you know, it can auto punctuate. All the Google Suite stuff. Like, I'm more savvy with that stuff, and I get made fun of for using it. I'm talking to my phone and sending a voice or a voice text or an email. I'm kind of like, this is the stuff you're developing. This is modern, cutting edge technology that's helping. But organization, and one of my favorite quotes is from Alton Brown, the guy who did Good Eats. Is some of my favorite content on. Oh my God, he's incredible. He says, organization will set you free. And what that means is, if you are organized, you have now freed your mind to think about all the things rather than the base components or the foundation, because you already have that. It's done. So now you can really start being creative and think. And I've carried that with me ever since I saw that episode of Good Eats so many years ago. And that's what has been the cornerstone of being able to run these restaurants. And of course, developing, you know, a wine team, more or less. And I do have people in roles that are not just sommeliers. We don't really have a sommelier team. Like, I don't know. I mean, tell me, like, how many restaurants do you know in the Bay Area, or at least San Francisco, that have somm teams anymore? It's far and few between.
2 and 3 stars. That's it.
I can think of maybe less than a handful. Which is, I mean, I think it's great that they still have them. But that, you know, I don't even know if Michael Mina has them as much as he used to, because with the evolution of the restaurants.
They're mostly floor managers that have wine buying responsibility.
And on that note, how many of those people really care about running a wine program? I'm not saying that they don't, but that passion that we started about talking in the very beginning about my career, and the passion just kept growing and growing, and aha moments. I don't know if, and I think there's people doing a great job that were already wine centric, but then they're like, hey, you have to be a manager too. And it's like, okay, it's either this, like you can't just go out and be a sommelier. It doesn't work like that right now.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll come back. Things are cyclical, but for now, I don't see a near future where employers can afford to have a team of sommeliers.
Yeah.
So you have to have people that wear multiple hats. You know, I have people that serve tables several nights a week, and then they somm the floor a couple nights, and watching them. Also, they love serving because they love being there.
Yeah.
And then breaking it up and then somming, it keeps things very fresh, whatever role they're going to be in.
And they can help their neighbor when they have time.
100%.
Yeah.
And I came from the Mina group where we had a very healthy sommelier team.
Right.
So it was very hard for me to adjust. Like, what do you mean? Like, no, they have to be certified and quarter masters and all that. And you know, one of the best parts of the evolution of all this is, you know, I did study for my advanced and I had intentions of doing it, but my career just kept getting in the way, meaning I kept getting promotions and taking on more responsibility.
I don't need it.
Yeah. And I noticed that, you know, you could be talking to a guest and do you think they give a shit about the soil difference between Barbaresco and Barolo?
Not really.
No.
Yeah.
They would rather hear how you feel about it and also maybe a story about it.
Yeah.
And that connection and why it's on there. So I just kind of went more like, I'm into the business side of it. And really remembering to connect with the guests. And, you know, I mentioned it before we did the podcast, is like, don't be a douche about wine.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and that's really important. I know that sounds kind of flippant to say it that way, but you don't necessarily have to know everything in order to do it.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, once people get their foot in there, and it is very daunting and intimidating to say, like, you were a server and you got into wine and all of a sudden now you're working the floor and you've got this massive list in front of you. But once you get a taste of it, all of a sudden to see the light in their eyes, you know, that just light up. That's one of my favorite joys now too, is that mentorship. And that's another thing that has kind of, in a lot of ways, gone away.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned Raj Parr before and Larry Stone. It was Larry Stone grooming Raj Parr, and then Raj Parr grooming all these sommeliers in the Mina group. And, you know, and I'm probably simplifying it, but Bobby Stuckey in Colorado, and, you know, all the people over in New York. And then a lot of those people from San Francisco moved to New York. You know, Dustin Wilson, I remember, he was a San Francisco guy, and then he went over to EMP. That doesn't happen as much anymore, that mentorship. And I could pick a bone about that one. I feel like a lot of the younger kids these days, they want to have the things, but they don't want to do the work to get there. Yeah. You know, like jump to the front of the line, and you're missing the key parts of, do you think I started my career out being a wine buyer? No, I was a busboy in a restaurant.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I never washed dishes, but I did everything leading up to that. And that's the whole idea of like building that foundation so that you don't ever have to think about it or worry about it when you're on the floor, and that frees you up to do the do things like the sommelier or upper level management. I think it's getting back to that. There was a time during the pandemic and coming out of it that it was hard finding people. It was really hard finding people, and at one point you just need warm bodies. Yeah, and you're just making sacrifices to keep it going. I definitely see a lot more people getting back into the restaurants, back into management, wanting more, wanting to grow, which is great to see. You know, we were all kind of holding our breath for a little while, but
it was concerning. Yeah,
feels like it's in a good spot right now. Yeah. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think in a way too, like the pandemic played a big factor in a lot of those things, right? It's like, obviously the pandemic happened, people left, people changed careers, people were concerned, like, restaurants will never exist anymore. Right. I'm going to get into a different career field, and, you know, good for those people. A lot of people moved to different places. You know, you saw them in San Francisco, you could go open a wine bar in Ohio and go like, fuck, I'm going to go do my own thing, right?
Totally.
And, so in a way, it was a super spreader event, but maybe spread out a lot of our concentration of wine industry professionals. But I also remember like building the program at Ozumo, again, a small program, but building the program at Ozumo and talking to John Lancaster and saying like, hey, like, if I want this and I want this, like, what distributor are you dealing with? Because he had like 90 distributors or something.
Yeah.
And he'd go, this one and this one. And he'd go, that one's really allocated. And I'd go, oh, okay. And he'd go, you know what? You should ask for it. I'd go, okay. And I'd call him and I'd ask for it. And they'd go, yeah.
Yeah.
And he would go, he would always give me a hard time. Like, you don't know in how lucky you are to be in the space that you're in, that you're being able to get every allocation you want because nobody else is open. Yeah. And I was able to buy everything I wanted to buy, and it didn't fucking matter. And, I was buying from Atherton. I could get all the PYCM that I would want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Lucky you.
Lucky me. And I just remember that and being like, wow, this is awesome. And I didn't take it for granted because I remember John saying that. And I remember how long John's been in the industry and how hard he's worked, and thinking like, look how lucky I am. It took how many years for him to earn an allocation of XYZ,
Totally.
And I'm just calling the distributor, like Sea Smoke, it was like a 6-pack, 12 bottles or whatever. And I would call and I would say like, hey, I need to reorder. And they'd go, well, you've already ordered 36 bottles. And I'd go, okay, that was of the 10. Yeah, send the other one. And they'd go, okay. And I just reorder. And it was just turnkey, Not that it was a brand I was necessarily passionate about, but the consumers bought it.
Consumers buy that.
And it was a huge ticket item.
Yeah. No. Yeah. You see that. It's important. Like, when running programs, you don't want to alienate the people that come in. I'm not saying, and please, I'm not, one thing that I like to make clear to everybody, I have friends that apologize when we're at a gathering with the wines they bring, and I'm like, do not ever apologize. I don't care what you drink.
Yeah.
If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Maybe it's not necessarily my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name the producer, but say there's an oaky buttery Chardonnay out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of restaurants where you have to kind of have that on the menu depending on where you are. And that, because that's what they come in for.
Yeah.
And if you don't have it, then they're leaving upset.
Yep.
And you've lost it. You've forgotten what you're supposed to be doing. We're here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. What an incredible dining scene. One of my favorite things, and also saddest things, is to read in the Chronicle almost every day is what's opening and what's closing, but all the things that are opening.
It's like the obituaries.
It's like the obituaries, but it's so cool to see that no one's resting on their laurels necessarily, and we're getting all these great. If anything, I'm jealous because a lot of it's opening up in the East Bay. Which seems so far away to go to dine.
A whole bridge.
I know, but like, good for them. Good for the people of the East Bay. But when you're running a program, you have to have some of those. You have to have your Sea Smokes and whatever the label may be. But hopefully you can start connecting guests with a lot of other great producers they've never even heard of. That's probably the best part of the job, right?
Yeah.
I always think of like a couple. I don't know what it is. It's a couple. Like, maybe they're married and they have kids and it's date night, or maybe they're just maybe they're falling in love or whatever, but they really want you to be a part of it.
Yeah. And
you can tell right away. And I love that they really complement each other as a couple. So it's like this wonderful relationship all around. And they're going there and they want to try something new and adventurous. And you get to be a part of that throughout the whole dinner. And I almost have a hard time saying goodbye to them because I feel emotionally invested. I've learned to say see you later. There's no more goodbyes because goodbye just hurts too much.
Right.
I mean, years ago,
next time.
Years ago, I'd like make an excuse and I'd go hide because I didn't want to say goodbye. But that's kind of rude. They want to say goodbye to you. Those connections that you have, like, those are their aha moments.
Yeah.
And then they come back in and they're so excited. That's just an example of a type of guest or guest that really sticks out in my career, that is just such a joy being a part of their experience.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky, everybody has a table that's an asshole, but how many tables are great?
Yeah, I would say the majority are great.
Mostly great.
Yeah.
A lot in between that are like okay.
Yeah.
And then rarely there's an asshole. And it's unfortunate that the asshole has so much weight. One bad table can ruin your night, ruin your week.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's like, how cool is it that our job is to give somebody a great wine and make sure that they enjoy their night? It's a lot harder job. My dad was a plumber.
Oh,
He used
well,
to say
I admire
like
him.
he used to say, Chris, people are always going to need to flush their toilet, but people are always going to want to drink wine.
Yeah.
You have your choice.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that's a really good
that's
plan.
good. Yeah. It's maybe a bumper sticker. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
But,
it's actually tattooed on my
That's awesome. Not a bottle of wine or anything.
No, fuck that.
Those
No, I don't
words
need a
right there.
corkscrew. Yeah,
Yeah,
I could be a
exactly.
plumber. I could be a sommelier.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. All right. We're getting to the point when we should probably talk about the wine.
Yeah. Can I
you-
just say it's really good?
That's it.
It's delicious.
That's all you have to say.
Right when I smelled it, I was like, "Oh, this smells like it's going to taste good." And
Yeah.
It's good.
We, pivot to echo back to your COVID term that we all lived and breathed by. Mine was adapt or die, but yeah, pivot seems a lot more positive. Originally, we had some ideas of what we wanted to bring on the day, kind of got away from us, and obviously we're running a little late to the appointment. So thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
Happy to have had a beer with you before. the
I
podcast.
know. That was great.
Anybody that's listening or watching, it's probably why I'm as friendly as I am today. We pivoted, and I wanted to pour you something that, like, when I was thinking about your program, and I've looked at your list a handful of times, it's high acid.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that was my thought, and so this is not available for sale in California yet, but it's
That's surprising.
It's a Rioja Blanco. Yeah.
Is it Viera based or completely?
Half Viera, half Grenache Blanc.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Grenache Blanc, I can definitely actually on the nose you can pick up the Viera.
Yeah.
It has like this. It's not aromatic. It's like semi-aromatic. But you're not. I think one of the things about Grenache Blanc I like is like it's almost like this phenolic bitterness that adds a lot of texture.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It grips your mouth.
Yeah.
Not quite tannin, but it adds to that feeling of acidity. I got to tell you, there was a part of me because of the temperature, I was like starting to lean Chenin Blanc a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of the texture and the aromatics and how like the acidity is so beautiful and it just drinks so delicious.
That's cool.
And I love Chenin Blanc, and ironically, I have a good amount of Chenin Blanc at the Progress. I used to buy heavier, but I made so much room for more Riesling.
Sure.
If I had more
Womp
refrigerator, I know.
As if that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I'd like to give a special shout out to my owners because they were kind enough to. I convinced them to buy me some more refrigeration specifically to increase the Riesling program.
Beautiful.
As you'll experience when you come in with Vince. And hopefully your wife, the food that we have at all the restaurants, just that grape in particular, especially like the juicy stuff, like fine herb cabinet, Spätlese, it goes so well with anything that's fermented. We always have a little bit of chili kind of kind of heat component.
Yeah.
But Chenin Blanc is actually one of my all-time favorites, and I feel like I've abandoned it a little
Neglected
bit.
it.
I had a whole page when we reopened in 2021 dedicated to Chenin Blanc, and it's still there. It's just about half full now.
Yeah.
But this kind of reminded me of a really tasty Chenin. But this is great. And you said I can't get this. Did you do that on purpose? Thanks a lot.
We can get it. Okay. It's a separate conversation. It's a sidebar, but
cool.
But I specifically was like, I want to pour him something that I know that he's never had.
Yeah, definitely.
From a producer that maybe you've had, but at least the wine you haven't had because it's never been imported into California.
Yeah, I've never seen this wine.
It
smells great.
I love the saline character too.
Yeah, it's like lemon head and saline.
Yeah. It's super cool.
God dang. We should finish it,
we can.
before they turn the lights off.
That's fine. Yeah, they won't turn the lights off. It's me. There's a motion sensor somewhere. One time I put the plant in front of it and the light turned off
During the middle of this.
Yeah,
that's hilarious. That is really good.
It was my nightmare.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Nice. So Chenin, to echo back, we'll finish this now.
Yeah.
That we can work through this glass. Chenin Blanc, I'm happy to hear, is one of your favorite grapes, but to really focus in on Riesling, one of the things that I've always thought was really fascinating is you remember being in high school and you remember how like stories would travel around the country without social media and rumors would travel around the country.
Yeah. I know one specifically.
Sure.
Richard Gere.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah.
Gerbil. Yeah.
And so one of the things that I think is really fascinating about like Riesling and Syrah is how it's really become this like pet wine for somms. And even though maybe, you know, to exclude obviously an establishment like yours, most places have like 2 or 3 Rieslings on their menu and they love them, but they don't fucking sell.
Right.
And Syrah is exactly the same. You know, I had a podcast with Claire Ramey and I said, I love your Syrah, but why are you still making it? You know? And it's because we care. And so it's kind of fascinating for me to think about how Riesling and Syrah have become these such endeared grapes by somms. And I'm curious why. Obviously, the cuisine has a little bit of heat, but other than that, is it the trips to Germany help? But is it high tone acidity? Is it the range of the grape and maybe the breadth of styles that speaks to you?
Great question. And you picked 2. I mean, Syrah happens. I didn't mention the grape, but I love Syrah.
I knew you would. Yeah.
I mean,
if you like Riesling, you like Syrah, and they're totally fucking opposite. But everybody likes them.
And also, haven't you noticed a lot of winemakers that we know? You maybe go to their winery or their house, and there's of course bottles up on the shelves, and a lot of them are, you know, Northern Rhone Syrah.
Yep.
Well, let's start with Syrah because I've talked about Riesling, and I'll go back to it. But Syrah, I think, is aromatically just as complex as Pinot Noir, and Pinot Noir is the benchmark for all wines in terms of that. It almost reminds that one scene in Sideways when he talks about Pinot Noir. It's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think if it's maybe not, the rumor mill is that he didn't even really drink wine before the movie. So God, thank you, Paul Giamatti, for your acting.
Right.
And you sold us.
Except Merlot.
Yeah.
Poor Merlot.
Even though he's drinking Merlot at the end, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it is, Pinot Noir can be haunting, and Syrah has all those characteristics, but in a different aromatic profile. It has the longevity of Pinot Noir, has a little bit more tannin, so it's a different wine. But talk about dipping your nose into a glass and you're smelling whether it's blue fruit or dark fruit, and then you're getting olive. Is it olive brine, and then white pepper, black pepper, and then some of my favorites are like the charcuterie. If it smells like a blueberry, if it smells like a blueberry cigar wrapped in prosciutto. I mean, what other wine does that? Like, it smells that in that.
I want a lot of that.
I want a lot of that, and I think that's why people and somms and wine lovers in particular love Syrah, because it offers so much complexity. I think it does get a little bit bastardized from people thinking Syrahs were all huge and massive, and there's incredible Syrah coming from Australia, Shiraz, but there also was Shiraz coming from Australia that kind of soiled the market of what Syrah can truly be.
Yeah.
So that is a big reason why I think, and it also is really food friendly. I just listed food groups or foods, blueberries and prosciutto, or pancetta and bacon and olive. I mean, we're talking about like eating the glass.
Yeah.
And then with Riesling, there are very few, Chenin Blanc being close, but how many other grape varieties are there out there that can go from sparkling?
Sure, yeah.
And there's some incredible sparkling wine.
Part 1.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, here's one of the most annoying parts in the most beautiful way. The last couple trips in Germany, each winemaker has champagne method wine.
Sure.
And they greet you with it. And it's still, I remember Clemens Busch, we're sitting in his house, and and this bottle was so good, and you can't buy it.
Yeah.
Can't get it.
Yeah.
It was so annoying. Everybody made incredible. They all made it kind of. I think Raumland was making a vast majority of everybody's wines because they're all friends. So the quality was exceptional. But then you go into dry, juicy. There's all these other. I think they got rid of Halbtrocken and there's finer. But more importantly, it's the complete spectrum and rainbow of flavors and styles and dryness to sweetness, all the way to, we talked earlier about TBAs and ice wines. There's no. I mean, Chenin Blanc comes close.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't quite reach what Riesling does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's why it can be so compelling. And I think the more I drink Riesling, and probably because I drink so taste so much of it and drink so much of it and have the pleasure of being in Germany and drinking these wines. Actually, it's when I get to like the Cabernet and Spätlese, that's when my eyes light up. I feel like a different feeling, and it's like people need to embrace the sweetness. You know?
Yeah.
I try to use the word juicy. I stole that from Johannes Zellbach from Zellbach Oster. I'll never forget. We were there in 2019, and he was talking about his wines, and we were tasting dries into to sweeter level ones. And he said, people call my wines sweet. I call my wines juicy. It's a word that we all know. We've used it many times. And I came away going, I never use that word when I'm describing wine. And I kid you not, when I came back, I'm using that to describe cabinets and stuff.
Yep.
All the guests were like, ooh, yeah. I'm like,
right.
Because like people go, I don't drink Riesling, it's sweet. I'm like, sweet like a peach or sweet like a Twinkie?
Right.
And they're like, sweet like a Twinkie. I'm like, that's dessert wine.
Yeah.
We can talk about that at the end if you want. We don't have foie gras on the menu.
Right.
I'm talking about like juicy, like peak summer peach ripeness that's just so delicious. Everybody loves those. Everybody loves a perfectly ripe yellow nectarine because it has acidity.
I'm thinking about it as you're saying it. I'm biting into it in my brain.
And we all love that. And that's what Riesling does.
Yeah.
Chenin Blanc doesn't really go, there's demi-sec and whatnot, but it doesn't go from like dry to dryish to semi-sweet to sweet. And it kind of, it's not as, the gradient is less, there's less gray in it. It's a little bit like here to here to here. That's why I think Riesling is so versatile with our food in so many different cuisines. I wish people drink more of it, especially when you get to the off-dry stuff, because it's lower alcohol. I'm not saying no alcohol, because we talked about that. But
8% is better than 12%,
right? And you can enjoy it, and you actually feel okay. And it, it's I love beer. I mean, people are like, you must drink so much wine on your day off. It's like, I love beer. I don't necessarily like to drink a lot of beer when I'm eating food.
I don't overthink beer.
Yeah.
That's why I love beer.
100%. But also it makes me feel really full when I'm having dinner. Like I don't understand how people drink cocktails throughout dinner.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, granted, you have a couple, but like if you're drinking all cocktails all night long, I'm like,
I'm blasted.
Yeah.
I also drink too fast.
Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about. I hope that helped round out the answer of Riesling and why I think people are so obsessed with it. And I still think it's misunderstood. I'm finding less pushback. We're fortunate to do a lot of larger groups, sometimes buyouts, and I specifically picked 2 wines to present to the host. Usually it's a phone call because I think I'm better over the phone than if I'm typing out an email. You gotta sell the product. I purposely pick Riesling. I usually do a dry one because we're talking about like 60 people coming in for a buyout. And I pick California Chardonnay. Because people are now going, I remember the days when it was only oaky buttery California Chardonnays and there was no other wine. And now people
checkmate
go, I don't drink California Chardonnay, it's oaky buttery. And what's so funny is people say these statements so matter-of-factly, but I guarantee you they're not going out and buying Chardonnay because they think that's what needs to be said because it's the popular in vogue thing. So I specifically pour California Chardonnay by the glass at Statebird from awesome producers that we love that are local. I can list off a ton of them right now. I just don't want to forget anybody. And I did it one of my favorite things of working the floor as the AGM of wine at Statebird was I had the opportunity to walk up and talk to guests, and they're like, hey, what do you enjoy for white? I don't want to do Chardonnay. I'm like, okay, cool. Like Riesling's too sweet. I'm like, okay, let me bring you
the ABC camp. Anything but Chardonnay.
And I go, let me bring you a few tastes, and I sneak in the Chardonnay, and 9 times out of 10 they're like, ooh, that's my favorite. I'm like, you like Chardonnay? Kind of like point at them. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, it's okay, tell your friends. We're doing some really good stuff out here. I think I lost where I was going with that, but I mean, Riesling is probably one of the most compelling. Chardonnay being probably second, right? Burgundy. But those wines are just becoming unattainable at this point.
So
because let's face it,
rough.
When we're drinking a really, really good Burgundy, and there's incredible Chardonnay all over the world. That is also very singular. It's different than drinking a glass of Riesling. Oftentimes, I find it the most enjoyable wine is a glass of beautiful white Burgundy. And I can't drink Riesling.
But
all the
I can
time.
only afford to share it with 10 people.
Right? And then I'm stoked when there's someone reps bringing in wines for me to try, and they're bringing in some white Burgundy. I'm like, oh my God, thank
Absolutely,
God.
yeah.
But I mean, like, do you have a favorite appellation in Burgundy for Chardonnay?
It may sound cliche, but Chablis still speaks to me. And if I'm in the rich mood, I'm in Le Clos. And if I'm not, I'm in or Monte de Tonnerre for less money.
Yeah.
Or I'm in like Vaudevé for the far west side. And I love that salty, bracing acidity kind of thing. And then with producers, again, maybe passé, but Louis Michel, William Febvre. I like that classic razor blade acidity, precision. I don't necessarily gravitate towards Dovizot or Ravenel. I also could never afford them.
But Ravenel is up. I mean, Ravenel is exceptional.
So fucking expensive. It's exceptional.
But we can't afford those.
But it's richer.
Yeah,
it is. And that's kind of the question is like, where do I want to go? If I'm going to drink Ravenel and it's with age, then obviously yes.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to drink something that I can afford on a day-to-day basis, I'll go Premier Cru. I'll go Monte de Tonnerre. I'll go Vaudevé.
Chablis is amazing.
Yeah. It feels to me like it's a slightly more... Oh, I'm going to get so much flack for this. It feels like a slightly more diverse appellation when it comes to white Burgundy production. In the sense of like, it's not quite as boxed in as other regions. You have that expectation of like, this is what Meursault should taste like. This is what Chassagne should taste like.
Right.
This is what this should taste like. And if you're outside of that box, it makes it really hard for you to sell your product.
Yeah.
It's not quite the Parkerization effect, but it's the homogenization of the DOC or the AOC. And you're trying to check those boxes that I'm hard pressed to think that like with less money, you can find better range of Chardonnay than in Chablis.
I totally agree with you. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, Chablis delivers, better than the Côte de Beaune.
Yeah.
Having said that, I feel like I do love Meursault quite a bit.
Love
because it's so heady and hedonistic on the nose.
Yeah, it's slutty.
And then it's slutty.
Yeah.
But then on the palate, it's so pure, and you get this kind of like, I wasn't like a kid walking around licking rocks or anything, but there's this something, there's like lime and stone. It's got this purity of fruit that's like pure Chardonnay, but it smells one way and tastes another. There's very few regions or wines that check that box. So when I'm feeling a little richer, Meursault is definitely up there. But it's also, it's expensive. There's no Grand Cru there. So you're not paying like Polini prices, but they're all still high up there. And that's the way things are going right now. And I understand why people don't want to spend so much on wine. I do think it's interesting, though, that they will spend a lot of money on food when they go out to dine, and then they'll go chintzy on the wine.
Yep.
And I understand, but let's not forget what goes into that bottle of wine.
Yeah.
We're talking about the weather, the vintage, the winemaker, the people in the vineyards, all the pruning, everything.
All the laws that enforce the quality.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. We're the Wild West out here.
Yeah.
You can put old vine on something and it doesn't mean anything. Reserve, it doesn't mean anything. We don't really have any. We have very loose laws, so short of like single vineyard stuff and whatnot. But in France, in particular, I mean, those quality. The quality laws are there for a reason, so you know that you're going to get something really good. But people will, oftentimes the bottle of wine is what they will spend the least amount of money on. And you can find some really good wines on wine lists for
sub 100.
I try to put things on there in the $50 somewhat range, but at the end of the day, we're talking about farming and how expensive. Like the other thing is I've really try to buy organic and biodynamic and regenerative farmed wines, because the wine's much better. Also, the people drew a line in the sand of, I know we're not making any money, but we care so much about this, and we care about taking care of the land and being a steward of Mother Earth. In the longevity, you want to support people like that. And
That's investing into the future.
investing in the future, and then I have to, as a buyer, pay for that, and then put it on a list and everything. So it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but you're getting such a much better product. It's just like if you get here in San Francisco, you got all these great restaurants that get produce from the farms, the farmers market, right out of the grounds. Like it's a huge difference than if you're getting something shipped in, or if you're grocery shopping at Whole Foods or whatever. The quality is not there.
It's a mysterious. It's you go to a restaurant and you're getting beef and you're like, cool, it's beef, but does it cost them $3 a pound, or does it cost them $10 a pound? Does it cost them $12?
Yeah.
I love when I go to a restaurant and it says like Mary's Farm Chicken. I go,
yes,
great. I know that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfortunate that we've had to assimilate, quality to brand.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing that we have access to versus, in Italy, there's DOCs and DOCGs for cheese and meat and all kinds of shit.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's odd.
Yeah. That's a whole nother that's a year-long podcast.
Oh yeah.
The industrial
absolutely.
food complex that is the United States of America.
Let's not get started.
No. We don't get off the rails. We've got this. By the way, this wine just continues to get better and better.
I'm glad.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Of course. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of white Rioja, and it can range so dramatically in style, and it's kind of one of those things that like I love to drink when I can have it, and sometimes they're like really oxidative and really kind of like waxy, almondy, and that's fine. But I just tasted this earlier today, and I was like, I really like this wine.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
thanks, I appreciate it. Any advice, any statements, any words of wisdom that you'd like to offer to listeners?
Well, first, thank you so much.
Thank you
for having me on here. What an honor. You're such a fantastic human being, and to be a part of it, I'm it's one of those moments where I'm feeling really blessed to be in this community and the job that I have, and to be invited on a show like this. I think what's speaking to me the most, and I may have touched on it before and used the words humility, is I'd like to specifically reach out to the people that are maybe interested in getting into this. They're really thinking maybe I want to be a sommelier, or somehow, hopefully one day be a wine director, wine buyer. That's the best part. Is first of all, work your butt off, work your ass off. You cannot skip the steps, because that will show itself in one way or another down the line. Is to have patience. I cannot tell you, patience, they say patience is a virtue. My goodness, my job is a perfect example of, I could have jumped ship and gone somewhere else or got out of the business, but I knew that if I was already working for the right people, if I stayed patient and loyal, that it would all pay off in the long run. And I'm proud to say that I think I have one of the best jobs in the country, because I work for the best people. We have the incredible restaurants, and I could go on and on and on. So patience, and there's 3 tenets that I have with my wine program. They're actually on the cellar door. So if you walk up, you're going to see is humility, integrity, and pride. Pride is different than, hubris. And
pride and humility balance.
Yeah, they really do. And don't forget that. And also never forget that you are at the service of others, and you are a steward of wine. You're not the lord of wine. You don't ever want to make anybody feel intimidated or less than. You want to embrace them like with a big warm hug and have fun with it. Don't be a douche about wine.
Don't be a douche about wine.
And so I think that makes the best people. It makes you a better human, not just at work, but outside of work. I feel like how can we not have what we do for so many years, you and me and others, not apply to our everyday, raising a family and whatnot. And so I think just hopefully there's more people that want to become a sommelier, that want to get into the wine business. We need you. We do. And just those are the parts that I think really ring true for me and the people I work with directly, is just humility, integrity, and pride. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's important. I mean, I think you nailed it. And then also, to give a little plug to what you said, be surrounding yourself with amazing people.
Yeah. I work with the best people.
That's the dream.
Every time I come in the door in the morning, I'm like, it's home.
Yeah.
It's home. And I don't fear it. I don't fear it at all. If anything, they have to pry me out of there sometimes. I'm very fortunate enough to work with people that also tell me like, hey, Adam, don't email on your days
Go
off.
home.
Yeah, they do. And it's important to find, I guess another word for everybody out there is balance. Yeah. And one last thing I will say, and this is not meant to be a PSA, but I will say, we were talking about taking care of ourselves. We're talking about, reasons for not drinking and whatnot. I think mental health is of utmost importance. And people are intimidated by accessing it, but restaurant people in particular, I think really would benefit so greatly. I'm proud to say that I'm in therapy myself, and I'm so proud of where I've gotten today because it's an outlet, and I think a lot of people don't, for whatever reason. Maybe they're ashamed or they feel like asking for help is a sign of helplessness, and really it's actually a sign of empowerment. You're taking control of your life. We can't do this alone, and you can't rely on your partner, and you can't rely on your family necessarily. So you need another resource, and I think that trying to get access to mental health, I think, would definitely benefit not just restaurant people but everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I had to throw that last really serious note in there.
That's fucking awesome.
You still have wine in your glass.
Yep. Enough for a cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.